Well, I definitely think we got a pretty valuable tool in the arsenal now. Endless possibilities, the things you can do and make with this thing. I picked this thing up like a year and a half ago. I've never used it, and I can already tell it's going to be annoying with this vise setup. So again, got some leftover tubing from when I built the chassis jig, so I'm going to make a stand for this thing. Got my pieces cut, 24 inches, and then two 10.5 inch pieces to allow for the 3-inch piece here in width. So basically I cut two of them 10.5, which would make 21 minus your 20 from your 24, 3 inches.
That you could do so.
So I understand a lot of you guys don't necessarily have a welding table. I mean, this isn't the best one by far in the world. So I guess I'm going to do it without clamping it down. So what I want to do, where this tube.
You want him to do you so much you could do anything?
Having a rough time talking today. So with this tube being seamed, naturally the seam humps up. So I'm going to put all the seams upright, so I have a nice flat surface on the bottom. Now granted, I'm going to put wheels on mine just to make it easier to push around out of the way.
You sure about that? You sure about that? That's why?
Either way, I want it flat on the bottom. And with the magic of editing, we're back. So I went ahead and marked center on the long one here. Mark center on these just to get it as close as I can. Check it with a square. Put a couple tacks on it. Okay, all done with that. Now what you could do is buff one side, and then you can lay this thing flat on the ground, good to go. Put your upriser. Well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put 4 casters on mine so I can just push it around. So get those put on here. Probably go ahead and put my upriser on there real quick. I got my riser set up here. I cut this thing 50 inches. Why? Because I don't want to crouch down when I'm using this thing. So I'll stand up, see what I'm doing. So get it square. A couple tacks on this thing, make sure it doesn't draw. Hate to build this thing and start leaning toward the peach orchard. So put that on there. Zero that out. $90 degrees, perfect. I hope you can see that. Okay. So we know we're level and square. A couple more tacks on it. I didn't figure you guys wanted to watch me drill a bunch of holes, so I got them drilled out. Got my nut certs put in, 1/4x20. Got these wheels bolted on, and now we'll just do the top mount and get this bead roller set up on it. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Got the heaters running. So I got my stand put together. I did originally put wheels on it. I didn't like it. It kind of moves around too much, if you will. So it's teetering now because it's on the seam of the concrete. It's just sitting here for display purposes for your benefit. But at any rate, I took some 3/8 bolts, tack welded them all on here, put each set of dies with it. So far, I like it. Looks pretty cool. We'll try to probably fool around with it today to see how it works. I'm probably going to be using this thing quite a bit when I do the floors and panels and whatnot in the chassis. So what I've been reading, and I actually come out and checked mine, and 100% accurate, these things deflect like really bad. So let me show you. So hopefully I'll hold still so you guys can see. I'll do a little zoom in so you can see right here how bad this thing deflects. So what I looked at online, a lot of guys go in here and brace this up because really it doesn't matter as long as the throat's open for your metal to move around. I mean, this could be 3 inches thick. It doesn't matter. So again, I have some tubing left over from the go-kart chassis. So I think what I'm going to do is pop this all apart, grind this up, take the paint off of it, and I'm going to go ahead and reinforce the back of mine. Same reason, to keep it from deflecting. The reason you don't want it deflecting is because, say, if you're rolling a bead or whatever, you can actually mar the panel or crease the panel if the die walks a little. If you're doing a step flange to where you're going to overlay 2 panels and spot weld them in or whatever, same thing. It can walk on you, make it a little wonky looking. So I'm going to go ahead and rip this thing apart. I'll save you the trouble. I'll turn you back on when we get to that point. I'll cut some tubing. We'll brace this thing up and we'll try a test panel out. I'll try my first bead roll. Got all the paint buffed off. This stuff, just FYI, it's 1/2 inch steel. This one come from Jegs. Never had a bead roller, always wanted a bead roller. Figure it'd be a pretty cool thing to use. So I think they're all pretty much the same. It's just a different color and a different store that sells them. All the cheaper line stuff. So anyway, we'll get a tape measure real quick and we'll measure out what we're doing and we'll get some tubing cut, see how it goes. Like 18.5. That'll keep me off the edge of my washers where the bolts go on to hold the bearing. I think what I'm going to do also is probably run these right on the edge of the throat, and then I can come back and actually put like a big piece of sheet metal out here just to help stabilize the panel that I'm going to roll. I think it'll benefit me. I've seen a few people do it, and it's a pretty good idea. I'll go ahead and get this tubing cut, and I'll bring you guys back and we're going to weld it on. Got my tubing cut. I went ahead and marked from the edge 1.75 inches. That'll give me plenty of clearance for my washer because there's about a 1/4 inch overlap. So that gives me a place to lay my tubing and have a weld, and the washer will clear. So let's grab the welder and probably a couple clamps or vice grips. We'll get this thing tacked up here with the best Harbor Freight welder that money can buy. Hopefully this is focused. You can see in this tubing, this is where they seam it together. It's got a bow out. If you hold it this way, I guess it'd be a D. So this is the flat edge. I want that on the throat. I don't want no crown on the edges of the throat because it could make the panel move or whatever when you're trying to roll it. So what I'm thinking, I'm gonna put it edgeways right up here at the edge of the throat, and that'll make it nice and strong, and it's less likely to deflect. It'll more likely to deflect this way than it will edgeways. Just like whenever you put a house together, you want the edge of the board facing you instead of the wide part of it. I don't know, I'm not a carpenter. I'm no Bob Vila, but I've watched him on TV. You understand what I'm saying? So, get a clamp or two on this. Maybe. A little hammer. Peck that over. Okay. I'm going to find me a little piece of sheet metal and space the top edge to where the thread will be flush. I think this is 22 gauge. That looks good. I know I keep blocking you, but what I'm looking for is this to be flush. And it looks pretty good. I need to tap this side down here. Double check it. I like it. We'll tack it. Hold that. Pretty excited about this bead roller. I know that there's like endless possibilities of things that you can do or make with them. There's quite a few people that do art with them. You can actually make like an image or a picture or something. Really cool. That I will never do that. I don't have the talent for that, but still cool nonetheless. I'm gonna stand in front of you again so you can't see. So tap this side over with my adjustable hammer. Pretty good. Now the top, I'm just going to make it flush with the throat because we're not worried about setting a panel on the top. It's just going to be riding on the bottom. whatever we build. So that's sitting there. Looks pretty square. And then the last thing we'll have to do is put a piece of tube in here, and it should be spaced enough that I can just cut a block and set in there, and we'll weld all this, and then that'll take the deflection out of it. So let's get this tacked in. Stacking dimes, Instagram welds. Like 2 inches is going to do us just fine. We'll go cut that. All right, we got our piece cut. Tapped it in there with a hammer. Forgot to turn the camera on. It is really tight though, which is good.
That's what she said. That's what she said. That's what she said.
Go ahead and get this thing welded. Put it back together, and I guess we'll try it out. All right, a couple more on the top and the bottom. Should be good to go. Look at those Instagram welds. I mean, stacking dimes. Alright, I got it bolted back up. So, it's still kind of warm, but as you can see, there's like a 1/16 of deflection now, where I was getting like a 1/4 inch or so before. So, I don't know what I'm going to do back here yet, as far as finishing this off. Obviously, you still need to be able to access everything. I might even run more tubing up here on the edges just to make it more rigid and beefy, less chance of deflection. But you still need to be able to access these to service it if you had to change the bushing or bearing, gear chips or brakes, which, I mean, you'd have to really be cranking it to break a gear, but nonetheless, you still want to be able to work on it. This is like a large bead roll. There's like a small, a medium, then there's like flanging ones that I have. So I think I'm going to try a bead roll itself. I have looked up kits, this manual crank. So I have looked up kits for these to convert it to a electric, which it may end up, I do what I always do it my way, in the cheap way. I think I've seen a couple people do it with some electric winches, motors, gear reduction boxes, whatever. I don't need this thing to be 100 mile an hour. Obviously what you're doing is you want to try to get it as precise as you can. So I'll try to maybe look up on Amazon or something, find me a motor or a gear reduction box or both. I've seen people use drill motors, which kind of janky looking to me, but either way, it's theirs. They want to use it that way. It's what they wanted to do. I'm not knocking it. It's just not for me. So let's grab a piece of metal, scrap some lines on it, and we'll try to roll a bead. All right, I got a piece of galvanized, basically like air ducting metal. Just drew a couple quick lines on it. We'll try this thing out. Just what I had, that's what I'm going to use. So from what I've seen, pretty much you line it up on your Obviously on your line, try to center your starting point as far as front to back. It's not as easy as you see on TV. There we go. So make contact. I took a Sharpie and drew a line on this tension bolt just so I can count my turns. So I think what I'm going to do, it's touching now, no pressure. I think I'm going to go 1, 2. Seems like a good number. Looks like it's got plenty of tension on it. And we're off. Walking off my line, but this is why we practice, I guess. Probably too much pressure. And don't put the camera in front of where you're working, because it makes it hard. You can see I got a couple little wonkies. Let's try another one. I'm going to slide you guys back out of the way so I can see what I'm doing. Maybe that'll be better. Got contact there. I'll go one full turn. Get behind it so I can see what I'm doing. I honestly think that it would be better if it was a powered one, because you wouldn't be trying to crank and hold it at one time. You could actually have two hands on the part and use your foot to make it go. That looks way better so far. Pretty clean line. I mean, obviously, I'm sure you guys know how wonky this stuff is usually. Basically, the bead rolling, you can do a fancy, pretty design in it, and also it makes it rigid. Do one more here. Let's go. Turn and a half. See what that one looks like. Compare 'em. See the 2 turns down, I can actually feel little pucker marks. So it's definitely way too much tension for this, at least this kind of material. But looks like the 1 to 1.5, pretty good. Let's do freehand one all the way around it. See how that goes. So this one, I'm gonna go 1. I kind of like the 1. So see how this goes. I'm just watching the edge of the metal to the die as a reference, and it's not true cut either. It's just a piece of scrap. So obviously with a line, it'd be a lot easier. It's amazing what you can do with these things. I'm like super pumped about this thing. It's so cool. I can't wait to convert it to electric. What happens if you cross paths? Let's find out. Probably not supposed to, but I'm a rebel. Do what I want.
Shit, boy.
Very neat. Kind of puts a little pucker where you're starting over the other piece again, but you're probably not supposed to do it anyway. But I just wanted to see what would happen. Very cool. This thing's going to come in super handy on the car. Well, I definitely think we got a pretty valuable tool in the arsenal now. Endless possibilities, the things you can do and make with this thing. I do plan on buying somewhat of a universal interior kit, panel kit for the floors and the firewall and whatnot. Obviously, you're going to have to modify it to make it fit what you're doing or what you have. This will definitely help. We can put some design into it, take the oil canning effect out of the metal. You get that boing boing sound to it when you're moving it and flexing it. So put some beads in it, put some flanges in it, whatever. Very cool. They make a ton of dies for this thing. They have like step edge dies, I think is what they call it. They have a rolling die that you can actually use for like tubing, that you can actually wrap the sheet metal around the tube. So very cool. I look forward to getting some more of those to try those out. But our back brace kit definitely stiffened this thing up a lot. I'm going to probably end up picking up a piece of sheet metal to lay inside of here to give me a nice flat table surface, if you will, so I can actually just steer it instead of trying to hold it and steer it with one hand and crank it. I'm going to look into doing an electric conversion on this thing. I've seen guys use drill motors, winch motors, whatever. They actually sell a kit that costs 2.5 times what I paid for this thing. If you're unfamiliar, these are sold by everyone, Summit, Jags, Eastwood Company, whatever. This one come from Jags. I think it was like $179 with the dies, super cheap. Obviously, this is a vice mount style kit, and we, of course, built this here to use it. So I definitely want to convert it to electric. I think it will be way better. Use a foot pedal on it and actually have two hands just to steer it, and hopefully we get some straighter lines out of it. So if you guys are new to the channel, welcome. If you haven't already, please click the like button, the thumbs up. Helps the channel a lot, helps the channel grow. I think we're right at the borderline of like 4,000 subscribers right now, which is amazing considering I started this channel a year ago. It's taken off. Obviously not Mr. Beast or Cletus McFarlane, not as entertaining, but I do plan on having more fun once we get some drier weather, warmer weather. This thing will be running and driving this year, no matter what. So we'll continue on next week. Probably back on the go-kart. I'd like to fire that engine up, get it broke in, get it running, change the oil in it, look into what cam we want to run with it, removing the governor and stuff like that. And we'll get that thing buttoned up. Hopefully we'll get the jack shafts and the sprockets ordered and whatnot and get to driving it. We'll see you guys next week.